Netflix has a new relationship therapy show. It's called Blue Therapy. 7 black British couples, a therapist named Karen Doherty, a blue sofa, 8 episodes of revelations, arguments, tears, and, according to a significant portion of the people who have watched it, the distinct impression that they are watching something that has been assembled rather than discovered. The show's producer, Andy Amardi, has said it is 100% real. The therapist has said it is real. Netflix described it as following 7 real couples, and yet the Reddit threads, the reviews, the viewer reaction across social media has been consistent. Something doesn't add up. It felt extremely staged. The stories felt too convenient, at least to me. The casting felt too curated. The problems felt neatly packaged for TV. This video is not going to tell you whether Blue Therapy is scripted. We cannot prove that. I think it is. And this channel does not state things it cannot prove. What we're going to do is something more useful. Examine what the show presents, ask the questions the show does not ask, look at therapy methodology and what it reveals and what it conceals, and think about what all of this tells us about how relationship dynamics are packaged and sold to an audience in 2026. Because whether the individual stories are real or not, the framework around them is a choice, and that choice is worth examining. So first I'm going to look at the authenticity question. Real, scripted, or something else? Let us be precise about what we actually know. Blue Therapy started as a YouTube series in 2021 on a channel called Trend Century. It went viral. Netflix then acquired it and produced an 8-episode series that premiered on the 4th of March 2026. The producer is Andy Amardi. What Amardi has said, the couples are 100% real. No stories were borrowed. What you see is what you get. What the therapist Karen Doherty has said, it is so real, not sensationalized. What Netflix says, 7 real couples. What is also true, the sessions were filmed in a studio. RD Studios in London confirmed it supported production in Studio 4. This is not a functioning therapy clinic. It is a television set designed to look like one. The couples were dressed, as one viewer noted, as if going to a wedding rather than therapy. The revelations land with timing and rhythm of scripted drama. Multiple cameras, professional lighting, sound design. The honest description of what this is somewhere between 2 positions. The couples are probably real people with real relationship issues, but the real people with real issues were selected from a casting process. Their situations were assessed for television suitability before filming began. The sessions were conducted over multiple takes in a controlled studio environment and then edited for maximum narrative impact. That is not scripted in the sense that the words were written in advance, but it is constructed in a way that makes the word, quote, documentary slightly misleading. With that framing in place, let's look at what was actually presented. So the casting and statistical implausibility. 7 couples. Consider the nature of the issues presented. A man with a secret vasectomy, whose partner wants a 4th child. A man who has secretly lost his job and is pretending to go to work with undisclosed debts. An influencer couple together 7 years, where the reason given for appearing on the show is that he won't commit to marriage. A man whose presenting problem is that he works too hard and buys expensive gifts. A man went on one date with another woman, only kissed her, and describes himself as being, quote, trapped into fatherhood. A couple who terminated a pregnancy because both carry the sickle cell trait. And 7 of those 7 couples are black British couples, because the show was designed with that specific representation in mind. Each individual story is possible, but the probability of independently finding 7 couples whose issues map this neatly onto distinct television-ready narrative categories, infidelity, financial secrets, commitment avoidance, work-life balance, reproductive conflict, grief, through an open casting process without any editorial shaping of which couples make the cut and what aspects of their situation the show chooses to foreground, is very low. The casting is doing significant editorial work that the show does not acknowledge. Next, I'm going to look at the couples, what the show presents, and what it does not ask. So couple number 1, the secret vasectomy. A man had a vasectomy without telling his partner. His partner, who already has 3 children, wants a 4th. The show frames this as a reversal of the conventional gender dynamic. The woman pushing for children, the man having secretly made a unilateral decision that removes the option. It is a genuine issue with genuine ethical weight. He made a medical decision affecting both of them and disclosed it by going on national television. The question the show does not spend enough time on is, why did he not tell her? What was he afraid would happen? The question to that is the story. We got the revelation. We got the reaction. We did not get the root. Couple number 2, the man pretending to go to work. A man lost his job, had undisclosed debts, and has been pretending to go to work. This is described by some viewers as the most obviously staged storyline. The specific detail that he has a habit of buying aftershave. Apparently, the activity he was pursuing during the hours he was supposed to be at work is the kind of detail that reads either as very human and specific or very much inserted for texture. The undisclosed debts were disclosed on television. If this is real, the conversation about money had on that blue sofa was the very first one that they had. The show presents this as a revelation. It does not ask, how does a relationship get to the point where the fear of disclosure is greater than the cost of the secret? That is the more interesting question. Couple number 3, the influencer couple. Together 7 years, the stated reason for being on the show, he does not want to get married. The unstated reason, which the show circles without landing on, they are influencers, and appearing on a Netflix show is significant exposure for people whose income depends on public visibility. This is not a cynical speculation, it is structural observation. The incentive to appear on the show exists independently of the relationship issue. The show does not acknowledge this conflict of interest at all. More critically, we never find out why he does not want to marry. The therapy methodology, which we will come to in detail, and I've got a 2-1 in psychology, focuses on emotional processing rather than cognitive exploration. So the sessions spend considerable time on how she feels about not being proposed to, which is understandable, but very little time drilling into why. Specifically, after 7 years with this person, it does not want to formalize it. Fear of commitment, a previous experience, a specific concern about this relationship that he has not been able to articulate. We don't know. The show ends without knowing. This is a significant therapeutic failure that the format conceals. Next couple 4, the man who works too hard. His presenting problem is that he works too hard. He buys his partner fine jewellery. A Cleef and Arpels bracelet is mentioned, a luxury French brand. This is a relationship equivalent to the job interview answer to, what's your biggest weakness? I'm just too dedicated. I care too much. I'm too generous to a fault. Every person who has sat in a job interview has heard this. It is not a real answer. It is an answer designed to sound like vulnerability while revealing nothing. The show does not push past it. The question that needed to be asked, what is the work actually doing for you that the relationship is not? And what is the gift giving compensating for? It is not asked. We are left on the surface. Next couple number 5, the man who, quotes, went on a date. A man is described as, quote, trapped into fatherhood. The infidelity disclosure. He went on a date with another woman. They only kissed. And she arranged something involving a music producer that never actually came to anything. And he did not attend any further dates. By the end of the show, he had a change of heart and wants even more children with this partner. The arc, revelation, processing, resolution, recommitment is perfectly structured for television. But the speed of the resolution is the thing that does not pass the smell test. Real infidelity, real betrayal, real processing of trust. These things do not typically resolve within 8 television episodes. What resolves within 8 television episodes is a story. Next couple 6, the lesbian couple. The show includes a same-sex female couple, which is presented as part of a broader representation goal. What is interesting analytically is what the sessions reveal about the dynamic between them. One partner has assumed a role that carries the characteristics the show associates in other couples with the male position, the dominant decision maker, the one who controls the emotional temperature of the room, the one whose preferences tend to set the direction of the relationship. The other partner is in the position the show consistently associates with the woman who is processing the impact of the other's choices. The therapy sessions do not appear to produce significant change in this dynamic. By the end, they are still together, and the underlying structure of the relationship, who leads, who accommodates, who names the problems and who absorbs them appear to remain as it was, which is entirely possible in real relationships. But it is also the template the show reproduces in every couple it features. The pattern is not about gender, it's about the format. The format requires one person to be the problem and one person to be the one processing the problem. Blue Therapy found that structure in every couple it chose, including this one. That is the most revealing thing the lesbian couple tells us about in the show. Not anything about same-sex relationships specifically, but the fact that the editorial template, one partner as the source, one partner as the processor, reproduces itself even when the conventional gender dynamic is absent, which means that the template is in the format, not in the biology. Next, couple 7, the sickle cell couple. Both partners carry the sickle cell trait. They terminated a pregnancy as a result. This is genuinely devastating situation, and it is treated with appropriate gravity by the show. It is also, statistically, the kind of situation that occurs in a small percentage of couples. All of the individual stories are possible. The real question is not whether any of them is real, it is whether independently discovering 7 couples with these specific television-ready issues through an open casting process is plausible without significant editorial selection. The answer is almost certainly no, which means the show is making choices about what relationship crisis it considers worth putting on television, and those choices reflect a set of values and assumptions that the format does not make visible. Next, I'm going to talk about the therapist, the last chance wasted. The therapist, Karen Doherty, she has 23 years of experience as a couples therapist. The methodology she uses is emotional focused therapy, commonly known as EFT, and this is where I want to spend some time because the methodology question is not an abstract one. For at least some of these couples, this show was likely the last serious attempt at intervention before the relationship ended. And if the methodology is not fit for purpose, if it systematically advantages one partner over the other, then the last chance was wasted. That is a serious thing to say, but I think it is the honest thing to say. What EFT is? EFT is a structured approach to couples therapy developed primarily by Dr. Sue Johnson, grounded in attachment theory. It focuses on identifying and transforming negative interaction patterns by helping couples access and express underlying emotional experiences. The emphasis is on feelings, on what the emotional experience is beneath the surface behavior, on attachment needs, on the fear and vulnerability underneath the conflict. There is substantial research evidence for EFT's effectiveness. It is not a fringe approach. In the right context, with the right clients, it is a well-validated model. The question is whether it was the right context and whether all of these clients were the right fit for it. Next, I'll talk about the fundamental problem, one side of the therapy. Couples therapy is essentially one requirement. Both partners must be able to engage with the therapeutic process. But if the methodology works significantly for one partner than the other, if it consistently surfaces one partner's experience while leaving the others largely unexamined, then what you have is not couples therapy, it is individual therapy with an audience. And whatever conditions are drawn from it will be skewed towards the partner whose experience the methodology is equipped to reveal. EFT prioritizes emotional articulation above cognitive explanation. It asks, what are you feeling? What does this bring up for you? Where do you feel that in your body? It is less interested in what specifically did you decide and why? What was the chain of reasoning that led you there? What would you need to change concretely for this to be different? The research on this is worth being precise about. Studies consistently distinguish between emotional experience, what somebody actually feels internally, and emotional expressivity, what they show outwardly. The evidence shows that women are typically more expressive across most emotions. It does not show that women feel more intensely in laboratory settings. The internal emotional experience is broadly comparable between men and women. What differs is the outward manifestation. Gender differences in expressivity are rarely present in infancy. They emerge during the preschool years, strongly suggesting socialization rather than biology. Men are socialized to suppress the display of internalizing emotions like sadness, fear, and anxiety, the very emotions that facilitate relationship closeness. while women are socialized to express them. Some studies show that men actually exhibit stronger physiological reactions to threatening stimuli than women do, even while reporting less subjective intensity. They are feeling it, they are not showing it. And EFT as a model is designed to work with what is shown, which means it is systematically less equipped to reach the partner who's been trained not to show it. The resulting blue therapy is visible in almost every session. The women speak, the therapy responds, the men respond as they normally would, but the methodology does not know how to reach them. And the therapist, not necessarily through any fault of her own, but as a predictable consequence of the methodology she is applying, gravitates towards the partner who is giving her what the model is designed to work with. Next, I'll look at what solutions were actually discussed. Ask yourself, having watched the show, for any of these couples, what concrete solution pathway was identified? Not what emotional wound was surfaced, not what revelation was made. What specific, actionable, agreed change was the couple going to implement? What was the plan? For the couple where he would not agree to marriage, what changed? We know she's hurt. We know she's aware she's hurt. We do not know what he has decided, why he has not decided it previously, or what would constitute a resolution. No pathway. For the couple with hidden debt, the debt was disclosed. What happens next? What is the financial plan? What accountability structure was agreed? No pathway. For the man who works too hard, he buys expensive gifts. That pattern was named. Was any specific behaviour change agreed? Any concrete boundary? No pathway. The show is very good at surfacing the emotional dimension of a problem. It is consistently poor at the next step, which is the step that actually determines whether anything actually changes. Good therapy does not just illuminate the wound. It discusses what healing looks like and what the specific steps towards it are. Blue therapy, as edited and as framed by EFT methodology, stops at the illumination. The couples leave the sofa having felt things. Whether they leave with a plan is largely left unexplored. Next, I'll look at the male therapist question. Male therapists in couples therapy are significantly underrepresented. This is a documented pattern in the profession. There are several reasons for it, but one of the most relevant ones is the dominant models of couple therapy. EFT among them are oriented towards emotional articulation in ways that tend to feel more natural to female practitioners and often to female clients. A male therapist working in a cognitive style, asking direct questions about decisions, about reasoning, about what specifically happened and why, can reach men in a way that an emotionally focused approach frequently does not. That does not mean that male therapists are inherently better. It means, for a particular subset of clients, men who process in cognitive rather than emotional registers, a therapist who can adapt to that style is more likely to produce genuine therapeutic engagement. And genuine engagement from both partners is the minimum requirement for couples therapy to work. The show did not ask this question. It did not ask whether EFT was the right model for all 7 couples. It did not ask whether a different methodology might have actually reached the men in a way that EFT was not reaching them. It simply applied one framework to everybody and called it result therapy. And I do have a 2-1 in psychology. Next, I'm going to look at adapting to the client, the basic professional standard. The first principle of good therapy is that the therapist adapts to the client, not the other way round. If a client is not responding to a particular approach, if the model is not reaching them, if they are not articulating the material the model requires, the competent response is to adjust the approach, to try a different entry point, to move from the emotional to the cognitive, from the feeling to the thinking, from the attachment wound to the specific decision and its specific consequences. What we see in blue therapy repeatedly is the opposite. The methodology is applied consistently regardless of whether it is working for both partners. The men who are not engaging in emotional terms are not met where they are. The approach does not flex, and the partner who is not being reached by the methodology sits there, present in body, largely absent from the therapeutic process, while the session fills the experience of the partner who is responding. If this is real therapy, and the producer says it was, that is a professional question worth asking, not aggressively, not as an attack on Karen Doherty as an individual, as an observation about what couples therapy requires and whether the format in this context was delivering it. Next, we're going to look at men control relationships, women control sex. There is a broader dynamic worth naming. It is a generalization, but generalizations that are structurally true are worth examining even when they are uncomfortable. In the majority of heterosexual relationships, men control the structural power in the relationship, the decision about commitment, about escalation, about whether the relationship formalizes. Women tend to hold the structural power in the domain of physical intimacy. These are not absolute rules, but they describe a pattern that relationship researchers have documented extensively and that plays out visibly in Blue Therapy. The most common presenting issue across the show is marriage, commitment, escalation, formalization. The man controls that decision. The therapy is about surfacing the impact of the man's decision on the woman. But the EFT, by focusing on emotional processing rather than cognitive exploration, never really gets to the mechanism of control. It gets to the impact of the decision, not the decision itself. It processes the downstream emotional consequences without examining the upstream power structure that produced it, otherwise known as the cognitive explanations. If your main issue is that one partner controls a fundamental decision that the other partner cannot unilaterally make, and most of the show's issue reduced to something like this, then a methodology that focuses on how each partner feels about the situation rather than the specific power dynamic and what a fair resolution looks like is, at minimum, imperfect. It may be worse than that. It may be actively misleading, producing the appearance of therapeutic engagement while leaving the fundamental power structure untouched and unexamined. The format was probably wrong, or if not wrong, then significantly incomplete. A format designed to surface emotional experience is a reasonable starting point. It is not a sufficient ending point. And for the couples who came to that blue sofa as the last result, the gap between what they needed and what the format delivered is not a small thing. Blue Therapy presents itself as a documentary about 7 couples trying to save their relationships. What it is actually selling is more specific than that and worth naming. So next I'll talk about the Black-British relationship as a context. The show was deliberately designed to centre Black British couples in relationship therapy, an area of television that has historically been dominated by white participants. That is a genuine and positive representation goal. The problem is that the execution packages those relationships within a format that prioritises drama, revelation, and emotional spectacle over actual therapeutic depth. If the purpose was representation, the vehicle should have been capable of doing justice to the complexity of the people it was representing. A format that never gets to the root of why the influencer does not want to marry, and that lets the man who works too hard present expensive gift buying as evidence of his commitment, is not doing justice to the complexity of those men. It is using them as content. Next, I'm going to look at the gender dynamic. Look at the pattern across the 7 couples. In almost every case, the man is the source of the problem that brought the couple to therapy. The secret vasectomy, the secret job loss and debts, the refusal to commit, the workaholism, the infidelity. The show is not explicitly anti-male in its framing, but the casting, combined with a therapeutic methodology that gives more airtime to emotional articulation, in which women are typically more practiced, and an editorial structure that foregrounds revelation and reaction, produces a consistent pattern. The men have the problems. The women process the impact of those problems. That framing tells a particular story about relationships which may or may not reflect the couples as they actually exist outside of the television studio. It is worth noting that one of the storyline choices, the man with the secret vasectomy, is presented as a gender role reversal, which it is. But the show's framing is still the man made a unilateral decision that caused harm. The woman is processing the impact. The structure of the narrative is the same, even when the specific issue is different. Next, we're going to look at therapy as a spectacle. Real therapy is slow. It is non-linear. It involves sessions where nothing dramatic happens. It involves going back over the same ground multiple times. It involves a therapist making interventions that do not produce immediate visible results. None of that makes good TV. What makes good TV is the reveal, the moment the secret comes out, when the tears start, when someone storms out or breaks down or says the thing they never said before. Blue therapy is structured to produce those moments. The therapy is the vehicle for the reveal. The reveal is the product. Which is fine if you are watching a drama. It is a problem if you're watching something presented as real therapy and drawing conclusions from it about how relationships work, what therapeutic intervention looks like, and what the normal distribution of relationship problems between men and women actually are. Those conclusions are shaped by editorial choices the show does not disclose. Next, I'll talk briefly about the pattern across all 7. Step back from the individual couples and look at what the 7 of them have in common. In every case, one partner is the source of the problem that brought the couple to therapy. In every case, the other partner is primarily in the position of processing the impact of that problem. That structure holds across the straight couples, and crucially, it also holds in the same-sex couple too, where the conventional gender dynamic is absent, which tells you that the pattern is not primarily about gender. It's about the format. The format requires a problem source and a processor. Casting selects for couples who fit that structure. Editing foregrounds moments where the structure is visible. The result is 7 couples who all tell the same underlying story, dressed in 7 different specific situations. 7 couples, 7 distinct issue categories, the same narrative architecture in each one. 100% real, says the producer. And it may be, but people were selected, arranged, then edited to fit a structure that was already determined before any of them sat down on that blue sofa. So in conclusion, blue therapy may be completely real. I don't think so. It may be partly constructed. It may be somewhere in the middle, which is probably where most reality television lives. What it definitely is a set of editorial choices about who to cast, what issues to foreground, what methodology to use, how to edit the resulting footage, and what story to tell about Black British relationships. Those choices are worth being aware of when you watch. Not because the show is bad, it's watchable. It is interesting to a point. Some of the situations are genuinely moving, but because the gap between what a show presents itself as and what it actually is tells you something about what it is trying to do to you as a viewer, what it wants you to believe, what it wants you to feel, what conclusions it wants you to draw. Media literacy is just watching with your eyes open. Blue therapy is easy to watch with your eyes open once you know where to look. If this gave you something to think about, like and subscribe. I also recently did a video on the age of attraction, but it's on the channel, so make sure you have a look. If you want more of this kind of forensic look at how relationship content gets packaged for streaming platforms, please like and subscribe, and thank you.